Hello viewers, welcome to Janashakti Network. April 22, 2025 will forever mark a day of mourning and moral reckoning in India. What unfolded in the scenic Baisaran meadow of Pahalgam, Kashmir was not just a brutal act of terrorism. It was a glaring reminder of the region's festering geopolitical decay, domestic governance failures, and communal fault lines. On what was supposed to be a peaceful spring afternoon, terror descended upon one of Kashmir's most picturesque destinations. 26 innocent tourists, 25 Indian nationals, and one Nepali citizen were mercilessly gunned down in a planned ambush, turning a serene meadow into a killing field. Eyewitnesses recounted horrifying scenes, families picnicking, children on horseback, and within seconds, chaos erupted as gunfire shattered the tranquility. Some children mistook the first bursts for fireworks until blood began to spill. Indian intelligence has since identified the assailants as operatives from the Pakistan-based terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba and its proxy, the Resistance Front. Among the attackers named are Adil Hussain Thokar, an Indian national from Anantnag, and two Pakistani citizens, Talha Bhai and Suleiman. Forensic data and intercepted communications have reportedly traced their movements to safe houses in Karachi and Muzaffarabad. The targeting of victims based on the religious identity adds a deeper layer of horror. The attackers, it is alleged, asked for names before opening fire. This was not merely an attack on Indian sovereignty. It was a hate crime, a calculated act of sectarian slaughter. The massacre is yet another entry in a long ledger of cross-border terrorism India has suffered for decades. The complicity of Pakistan's intelligence infrastructure in shielding, training, or turning a blind eye to terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba is no longer debatable. While Islamabad continues to deny involvement, the global community can no longer afford to be swayed by diplomatic doublespeak. The Indian government must pursue every available diplomatic and legal mechanism at the UN, in global forums, and through bilateral channels to isolate Pakistan diplomatically and demand accountability. But outrage must be matched by introspection. Baisaran Meadow is not a remote, inaccessible location. It's a major tourist spot, frequently visited by both domestic and international travelers. The glaring question remains, how did militants breach a supposedly high security zone without detection? Where was the intelligence apparatus? How did local forces fail to anticipate or repel the attack? This is not just a tactical lapse, it's a systemic failure. Despite claims of enhanced surveillance and intelligence networks in Kashmir post Article 370 abrogation, the Pahalgam attack reveals how porous and reactive our security grid remains. No resignations, no accountability, just silence. Instead of introspection, the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has chosen to politicize the tragedy. Within hours of the attack, party functionaries were seen invoking revenge in rallies across Bihar, Maharashtra, and Uttar Pradesh. The event is being aggressively spun into communal rhetoric aimed at polarizing voters ahead of crucial state elections. From WhatsApp forwards to inflammatory speeches, the message is clear. Link the tragedy to Muslims, both in India and Pakistan. Instead of strengthening national unity, the incident is being wielded as a cudgel to divide. Candlelight vigils are overshadowed by hate-filled hashtags and targeted propaganda. This strategy is not new. Each terror attack becomes a campaign plank. Each national tragedy is reframed into a binary. Hindu victim versus Muslim aggressor. The party's machinery, amplified by social media bots, firebrand influencers, and certain sections of the media, works overtime to fan the flames of communal fear. Post Pahalgam, disturbing reports have emerged from across Indian cities. Muslim street vendors being attacked, mosques vandalized, and boycott calls for Muslim owned businesses. These are not isolated outbursts. They are orchestrated responses enabled by an environment of impunity and ideological encouragement. The Indian state, instead of reigning in hate, seems complicit in enabling it. Law enforcement agencies are either inactive or partisan. Civil society, student unions, independent journalists, and interfaith leaders remains the only bulwark against the rising tide of majoritarian aggression. When Article 370 and 35A were revoked in 2019, the BJP promised that it would end separatism, bring peace, and integrate Kashmir fully into the Indian Union. Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah assured the nation that terrorism would die a natural death under their new Kashmir policy. 6 years later, the massacre at Pahalgam exposes the hollowness of those promises. Kashmir today resembles a garrison, not a peaceful democracy. Surveillance is omnipresent, internet shutdowns are common, dissent is criminalized, and even peaceful assembly is discouraged. And yet, terrorists struck with brutal precision, raising fundamental questions about the efficacy and legitimacy of India's Kashmir strategy. In the wake of the attack, the Indian government announced a review of the Indus Waters Treaty, a move touted as a bold retaliation. But geopolitical analysts and hydrology experts agree India lacks the infrastructure to alter the water flow significantly without years of planning and construction. Such a step would violate international law, invite global condemnation, and hurt downstream Indian regions too. This announcement, like many others, is performative, designed not for strategic outcomes but for political optics, a jumla, not a policy. The fallout is already visible. Cross-border firing along the line of control has intensified. Pakistan has suspended the Shimla Agreement and closed airspace to Indian carriers. Trade has halted, diplomatic back channels are frozen. The region teeters on the edge of a deeper conflict, and yet global actors remain hesitant. Statements of condemnation have emerged from the United Nations and several Western capitals, but no concerted international pressure has been applied. The world must recognize that a flashpoint like Kashmir, if left unchecked, could ignite a regional war with global implications. The Pahalgam massacre must force India to confront uncomfortable truths. The rot is not just across the border, it's within. The failure to protect citizens, the communalization of grief, the erosion of secular institutions, and the silencing of dissent point to a deepening democratic crisis. Real national security is not merely about guns and checkpoints. It's about trust, inclusivity, justice, and constitutional values. You cannot fence peace with barbed wire and surveillance towers. You cannot buy loyalty through fear. What India needs today is not performative nationalism but courageous governance, not communal mobilization but constitutional fidelity, not empty slogans but structural reform. Intelligence and law enforcement agencies must undergo urgent internal reviews. The failure in Pahalgam cannot be brushed under the carpet. India must continue pressing Pakistan in global forums, not just with rhetoric, but with legally backed, evidence-based advocacy. India must invest in long-term counter-terror strategies, including de-radicalization programs, economic development in conflict zones, and interfaith dialogue. Communal polarization must be resisted at every level. Politicians, influencers, and civil society must draw clear red lines against hate speech and vigilante violence. The region needs its voice back. Elections must be held. Civil liberties must be restored. Peace cannot be imposed. It must be negotiated, earned, and sustained. The victims of Pahalgam were not just casualties of a terror attack. They were symbols of a nation caught in the crossfire between external aggression and internal decay. To honor them, India must rise above politics, ideology, and propaganda. Yes, Pakistan must be held to account. Terrorism must be crushed, but that cannot come at the cost of India's soul. National unity cannot be built on fear. It must be rooted in truth, in dignity, in justice. Let this tragedy be a turning point. not for vengeance, but for vision.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest incidents. Hit the bell icon to never miss an update. We will see you next time with more news that matters. Stay informed, stay safe.